Strange tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Strange Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to bring you two short stories. The first story is called Judged by a Poem. In Qingzhou, there lived a man named Fan Xiaoshan, who made his living selling writing brushes. He spent most of the year traveling for business and was seldom at home. One night in April, while his wife, Madame He, was home alone, tragedy struck. Their home was broken into by a thief, and Madame He was brutally murdered. That night, a light rain had fallen, and in the muddy courtyard, a folded fan was left behind. A poem was written on its surface, and the signature revealed that it had been a gift from someone named Wang Sheng to a man called Wu Feiqing. No one knew who Wang Sheng was, but Wu Feiqing was a well-known wealthy man from the same village as Fan Xiaoshan. Wu had always been known for his arrogance and debauchery, and his eccentric behavior often raised eyebrows. Naturally, the villagers began to speculate. Chances are, he was the killer. The authorities wasted no time arresting Wu Feiqing. Under intense interrogation, Wu refused to confess. But the constables weren't ones to play nice. They used all sorts of brutal punishments. Finger presses, whips, you name it. After being tortured to the brink of death, Wu finally gave in and confessed, against his will. With that, the case was closed. The case was passed up the bureaucratic ladder, from county to prefecture, and reviewed by over a dozen officials. None raised any objections. Wu Feiqing, resigned to his fate, told his wife, "We've still got some savings. Use the money to help the poor and needy." From that day on, beggars crowded the entrance of the Wu household. Anyone who could recite Amitabha 1,000 times would be given a pair of cotton trousers. If they reached 10,000 repetitions, they'd get a cotton-padded jacket. Gradually, the chanting outside Wu's house grew louder and more constant. People said you could hear it from 10 miles away. Before long, the family's wealth was drained. Eventually, they had to start selling off their land just to get by. Wu Feiqing, in utter despair, bribed the prison guards in secret, asking them to bring him poison so he could end his own life. But that very night, he had a dream. A celestial being appeared to him, solemn and commanding, and said, "Do not take your own life. Danger once lay outside, now salvation lies within." Wu woke with a start, puzzled by the cryptic message. After tossing and turning for a while, he drifted back to sleep, only for the same immortal figure to appear again, repeating the same line. This time, Wu couldn't shake the feeling that maybe his fate was about to change. He abandoned his plan to take poison. Not long after, a man named Mr. Zhou Yuanliang was appointed as the Coastal Defense Commissioner of Qingzhou. Upon taking office, he began reviewing all the unresolved or questionable cases along the coast. When he came across Wu Feiqing's file, something about it struck him as odd. He summoned the plaintiff, Fan Xiaoshan, and asked. According to this case file, Wu Feiqing is accused of murder. What evidence do the authorities actually have against him? Fan Xiaoshan replied, "There was a fan. That's the proof." Mr. Zhou examined the fan closely, turning it over in his hands, then asked, "And who is this Wang Sheng?" The people present all glanced at each other in confusion. No one had any idea. Zhou frowned, flipped through the entire case file again with great care, then decisively ordered that Wu Feiqing's status as a condemned prisoner be revoked. Instead, he was to be moved to the regular prison cells under standard supervision. The moment the order was given, Fan Xiaoshan turned red with anxiety and protested loudly. This is a murder case. A serious one, with solid evidence. Why should Wu Feiqing get off so easily? Zhou's expression darkened. Let me ask you, he said sternly, do you just want to find someone, anyone, to take the fall, or do you actually want the real murderer brought to justice for your wife? Fan was left speechless, and the onlookers all fell silent. Ignoring the crowd's reactions, Zhou immediately issued a red arrest warrant, commanding the authorities to bring in the shopkeeper of a store just outside the south gate for questioning. The shopkeeper was soon dragged into court, trembling with fear and dropping to his knees, pleading. Please, Your Honor, I swear I'm innocent. I don't even know what I've done wrong. Zhou asked. I noticed there's a poem by Liao of Dongguan written on your shop's wall. Do you remember when it was written? The shopkeeper thought for a moment and replied. That was last year, Your Honor. A provincial education official came through on an inspection trip, and a few scholars from Rizhao came to drink at my shop. They got a bit tipsy and started scribbling poems on the wall. That's when the poem was written. But as for which villages the scholars were from, I couldn't say. Zhou immediately dispatched men to Rizhao to search for Liao. A few days later, Liao was brought to court. You call yourself a scholar, yet you committed murder? Zhou slammed the table and bellowed. Terrified, Liao dropped to his knees and banged his head against the floor. I'm innocent, Your Honor. I've always followed the law. How could I kill someone? Zhou gave a cold snort and threw the fan in front of him. Take a good look. The poem on this fan is exactly the same as the one you wrote on that tavern wall. You clearly wrote this poem, so why is the name on it signed as Wang Sheng? As soon as Liao saw the characters on the fan, his expression changed. Yes, the poem is mine, he admitted, but I didn't write it on the fan. Zhou paused, then said slowly. If the poem is yours, then whoever wrote it on the fan must be someone close to you. Look carefully. Can you recognize the handwriting? Liao studied it for a while, then said hesitantly. Judging by the style, it looks like it might be Wang Zuo of Yizhou. Zhou immediately ordered officers to go to Yizhou and arrest Wang Zuo. When Wang Zuo was brought into court, Mr. Zhou questioned him in the same stern tone he had used with Liao. Wang dared not hide the truth and confessed. Yes, the calligraphy is mine, but it was a commission from a man named Zhang Cheng, an iron merchant from Yidu. He asked me to write it on a fan that he said was a gift for his cousin, Wang Sheng. Zhou slammed the table with a loud bang, his voice cold and heavy. Then Zhang Cheng must be the murderer. The constables immediately set out and brought Zhang Cheng in for questioning. After a brief interrogation, Zhang confessed to everything without resistance. It turned out Zhang had long harbored lustful thoughts toward Hesher, Fan Xiaoshan's wife. She was a beautiful woman, and Zhang had been plotting how to seduce her. He thought to himself, if I approach her directly, she'll surely reject me. But if I pretend to be someone else, perhaps I can succeed. That Wu Feiqing from the same village is notorious for being a lecher. If I impersonate him, no one will suspect a thing. I'll forge a fan with his name using my cousin Wang Xing's identity, and use it as evidence in case anything goes wrong. Then I'll sneak into her home at night, and even if something happens, no one will ever guess it was me. With this wicked plan in mind, Zhang acted at once. However, murder had never been part of the plan. That night, under a dim and hazy moon, Zhang climbed over the wall into Fan's home. The ground was still slick with rain from earlier, and the courtyard muddy. Holding his breath, he crept toward the house. But Hesher, having lived alone for so long, always kept a sharp knife nearby for protection. She sensed something was wrong, opened her eyes, and saw a dark figure lunging toward her. Reacting instantly, she grabbed Zhang's sleeve and reached for her knife. Zhang was startled. He never expected her to resist so fiercely. Panicked, he tried to wrestle the knife away, but Hesher held on tightly, screaming for help with all her might. Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control and fearing exposure, Zhang lost his nerve and, in a fit of desperation, murdered her. Afterward, he tossed the forged fan on the ground and fled the scene. This miscarriage of justice had lasted a full 3 years before the truth finally came to light. Everyone present was full of praise for Mr. Zhou's brilliant deduction. Only now did Wu Feiqing understand the words of the immortal in his dream. Ji inside was actually a clever riddle, referring to the character Zhou, which contains the character Ji within it. Still, many were puzzled. How had Mr. Zhou seen through the case in the first place? Later, a local gentryman took the opportunity to ask Zhou the very same question. Zhou smiled and said, "It was really quite simple. I read through the case file carefully and noticed that the murder had occurred in early April, on a night when it had rained. In such cold and damp weather, who in their right mind would carry a paper fan outdoors? More importantly, a person planning a crime would want to move quickly and lightly. Carrying a delicate paper fan would only slow them down. So, the fan had to have been planted deliberately, to frame someone." He paused, then continued. "As it happened, some days earlier I had taken shelter from the rain near the south gate and noticed a poem written on the wall of a tavern. The poem was quite elegant, and it stuck in my memory. Later, while reviewing the case file, I saw the exact same lines written on the fan. That's when I first suspected that the author of the poem might be connected to the crime. From there, we followed the clues, and sure enough, the truth revealed itself, step by step." Those who heard this explanation were filled with admiration, all deeply impressed by Mr. Zhou's sharp insight and brilliant reasoning. At the end of the tale, the author offers this reflection. In this world, those who are willing to study deeply and think carefully can often turn even the most seemingly trivial things into something extraordinary. Poetry and verse are, by nature, mere matters of romantic whimsy, but in the hands of Mr. Zhou, they became tools to perceive the hearts and minds of scholars across the land. Truly, he possessed a rare insight into human character. And was this not the fruit of tireless study? Even more remarkable is how he transformed this insight into a means of solving crimes and delivering justice. It brings to mind a line from I Ching. "All things give off subtle signs. Those who can perceive them can reach heights beyond ordinary comprehension." It would seem that Mr. Zhou had indeed reached such a realm. The second story is called The Wild Goose. In Tianjin, there lived a bird hunter renowned for his remarkable skill. He had a clever method. He would tie a thin cord to the tip of his arrow. Once the arrow struck its target, he could simply reel in the line, leaving the prey with little chance of escape. One early morning, he drew his bow once more. The arrow flew, and with a gentle tug of the cord, he captured a female wild goose. The goose flapped and struggled with all her might, but in the end, she was brought back home and locked in a cage. Just as the hunter was securing the cage, he suddenly heard a heart-wrenching cry above his head. Looking up, he saw a male goose circling in the sky, calling out in mournful tones. Around and around it flew, refusing to leave the hunter's home, as if overcome by sorrow. Only as night fell did the goose reluctantly fly away, vanishing into the dusk. But the next morning, as the hunter stepped out of his home, the same male goose returned. It followed him closely, as though pleading, wanting to speak, yet unable to do so. Eventually, it ceased flying and slowly descended to the hunter's feet. Puzzled, the hunter reached out to catch it, but just then, the goose lifted its head, stretched out its neck, and with a twitch of its throat, coughed up a lump of gold. The piece fell to the ground, faintly glowing in the morning light. Amazed, the hunter picked it up and weighed it, nearly 200 grams of solid gold. He looked again at the goose, which still stood motionless, its dark eyes fixed on him, filled with a pleading sorrow. Suddenly, the hunter understood. With a sigh, he said, "You've brought me gold to ransom your mate, haven't you?" He opened the cage. The female goose stepped out, and the two geese, finally reunited, circled one another in joy and relief. Then, lifting their heads, they let out a long, echoing cry, one of both sadness and elation. Spreading their wings, they rose into the sky, flying side by side until they disappeared into the clouds. Ah, what can birds know of love? And yet, they showed such fierce devotion to one another. In this world, is there anything more sorrowful than lovers torn apart? And could it be that even the beasts of the wild suffer the same pain? All right. That's all for today's tales, judged by a poem and the wild goose. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.